Well, welcome everyone to our How to Hex webinar. The theme of this one is speed, technically, although I kind of like at the last minute reworked this and called like time to first insight, which I think is a fun metric that I've been thinking about that like Hex really helps with. This is going to be super casual. I'm going to spend about 10 minutes, maybe 15 tops, walking you through like end-to-end demo of the entire Hex workflow from absolute scratch to building a like real app that answers a question for us. We'll publish it, we'll take a look at it, and I'll kind of point out really specific things that make Hex so fast and efficient for doing analytical projects. And once I've done that and given you the lay of the land, I'm hoping that I'll be able to answer all your questions about why Hex is so fast, why it's so efficient, or really anything Hex related at all. Sound good? Cool. Oh, someone raised their hand. You're welcome to just pop your question into the chat and I'll answer it as they come in if they're relevant or at the end if they're not. So I think we'll actually just crack right into the demo. I didn't prepare a ton of slides. So we'll jump right into Hex actually. And I'm assuming that some of the people in here have seen Hex, some of you haven't. So I'll give a really quick like basic intro. If you're already familiar, then just please hang tight for a moment. Let me make this bigger for everyone. So this is like the Hex homepage view with a list of all the projects I've been working on lately. We're going to jump right into a new project. And if you're not familiar, Hex is a notebook-based tool, but it takes the concept of a code notebook like Jupyter or other notebooks you're familiar with and adds a ton of other stuff on top of it, including rich SQL support, a ton of other cells like visualization cells, no-code transformation cells, a heck of a lot more. And then we'll see at the end that it lets you actually take your work in the notebook and turn it into a report or an app or a dashboard, something that you can actually share with people really easily. So in the interest of demonstrating the speed of Hex, I think we'll actually just like walk through a real sort of made up, but real enough analysis together. We'll take like, hopefully like no more than 5 or 7 minutes to actually like start from nothing, answer a couple questions about our demo data set, and then publish an app that actually is like interesting and usable and beautiful. And I'm hoping that that will really convey to you how fast this is. And along the way, we'll hit on a few key points. So this is a default Hex workspace. We're going to start with a SQL cell, as it's like very loudly asking us to do. And once we've done that, you can see that we're popped into this notebook style interface. We can add cells, we can add Python cells, SQL cells. We have a ton of options here. We'll give this project a name right away. We'll call this How to Hex demo. And really, every good data project starts with a question or it starts with the data. I kind of already know what question we're going to answer. I'm going to use our demo connection so that you could like walk through this yourselves later if you want, following a recording. One of the first ways that Hex makes this kind of data work really efficient, you don't have to jump around between tools to like figure out what data you're working with and then write your query and then do your analysis. We're going to pop open our schema browser here, and we can see all of our demo data right here in this helpful schema browser. We can search for stuff. So if I didn't know what I wanted, I want the like order details table. We can start searching for order details and it pops up right there with all of our DBT information because it's attached to DBT. So we can see no tests have run on this table, but the model was last built like 2 weeks ago. But we want to look at, I think, our e-commerce data. And so I'll kind of cruise through here until I find what I'm interested in. And let's just like build a really basic dashboard that shows our general order volume, and then maybe we'll dive into the events table and look at like some web analytics information. It could not be easier or quicker to start pulling data into your Hex project. You don't have to configure any kind of connection or set up anything with a Python connector to your Snowflake warehouse. An admin's already set this connection up for us. We just clicked query and we have data here already. And this is a super rich SQL IDE. It has a ton of really neat features that make things fast. You can actually see that this query I ran about 25 minutes ago, and it's pulling from the cache. So I could run it without the cached results, but this only took like probably less than a second, just rounding up, to pull back our data. And maybe we just want to get our like general order flow over time. So we'll look at created at, and then we'll say count. And maybe we actually want to like truncate this down to the week or something. We'll say week. We'll run this query. This one isn't cached, so it'll take a couple seconds to reach out to our Snowflake database, grab some data, and pull it back in. And then right away, you can pop this directly into a chart and start exploring the data visually. So we don't have to like look at just the tabular view or start messing around in Python to build a chart. You can grab this. We can even truncate this down further to just like month if we want. And immediately we get a sense of our order volume by month as it goes up. Something that's really handy is you don't actually need to write all this SQL to start exploring data because of this built-in visual exploration. Let's just go back and run that select star again. This might take a second to pull back some data. Oh, but it was cached, so it was super fast. And now we just have a bunch of ungrouped, unaggregated data here. And normally you would like start aggregating and exploring like we just did. You can actually just pop right into the chart cell and say like, okay, we want to look at our like orders by status. So here we go, orders by status. Maybe we want to slice this by the like number of items in an order and see like our big orders being canceled or processed. We can look at that really, really easily without having to write any additional SQL. You can also use this to filter down data. So we could say we just want to look at completed orders. We can see that it's added some filters here visually without us having to edit SQL. But if we look at the compiled SQL, it's actually just writing some more clever SQL against the database. So all of this is super fast. You can run this against data of any size. You can get started exploring your data really, really, really quickly. So let's go back to just that, like order information over time. So we'll just look at account of orders, and we'll truncate this down to the month. And I'm going to get rid of that grouping. Great, there we go. So now we can see our order volume steadily rising. Awesome. Let's look into our event data, and I'll show you something really, really, really neat about Hex's SQL querying that makes this really, really fast to work with. So we have this events table here, which is our web analytics events for this demo data set. So I'll start querying this. Let's say demo data, e-commerce events. And if I start querying just everything out of this, you will immediately realize, or almost immediately realize, that this is a really big table with millions of rows in it. It's taken a long time. It's sort of streaming data in, but we're getting up there. It's taking quite a while. And this would keep running for quite a while. So I'm going to stop this because it was pulling in millions of rows and it was taking 15 seconds. I just want to get a quick sense of this data so I can start manipulating it and exploring it. So I'm going to change this from data frame mode, which would return a complete result set into the notebook to be manipulated. I'm going to change it into query mode. And this will return a query preview of 100 rows in like a second. And it's actually left most of the results back in Snowflake. So we haven't pulled in millions of rows, but we have this query here, and I can immediately see, okay, this is all the data that we have. And I can get a sense of it and start working with it in just a second. And this works no matter how big your data set is. And so I find that often when I'm working with like an enormous 100 million of rows data set, you really want to keep it in query mode for as long as possible, then maybe iteratively aggregate, group, limit, filter until you have something that you can work with in its entirety. And queries work in charts also, which is really, really, really cool. So you can push down your compute at every level. The way that this makes things really fast is that we don't have to spend time rewriting this query right in this SQL cell. We can take this query and chain another SQL cell onto it. And so now say maybe we want to look at our like just event type breakdown. We'll say event type, let's get a quick count star and run this. We're running a SQL query against the output of our previous SQL query. And you can do unlimited number of chains here. And Hex has a built-in like reactive graph-based execution model that knows all of your different cells. So say if we changed this here to say like where created at like greater than 1, we rerun this cell. we'll see that this cell is also rerunning automatically to keep everything up to date. So you don't have to go through your notebook and click, 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 click to get everything to rerun. You also don't have to click the dreaded run all button, which I know a lot of notebook users are used to kind of like instinctively clicking to keep everything up to date. Hex makes sure that everything in your notebook stays up to date with the parent and children dependencies. So it's really, really fast to work iteratively and change things, filter stuff. We'll go to that. And this will rerun again. So we can see our like event breakdown. Again, it takes like a second to pop this into a chart that will be automatically built for us, showing, I don't know why that's not running. Run that again. We can see like there's a ton of product events, people are browsing, there's some purchases, quite a lot of cancellations actually. But like what might be really interesting here is to know something about event sequences, maybe like what kind of sequences people are taking before they purchase. So we'll duplicate this into a new cell. And this has been lately one of my quickest Hex efficiency gains. I'm sure everybody here tried out ChatGPT at least a little bit, but it's kind of a pain to like go back and type into ChatGPT, how can I group stuff into event sequences and copy and paste and try it. It doesn't work. Go back, try it again. It takes a long time. Hex has built-in magic AI into every cell, SQL, Python, everything that lets you generate completely new code from natural language, edit code, automatically fix stuff, or debug existing code. So we're going to ask it to do that. We'll say like, list ag our events into session sequences by event type, and then find the top event sequences that lead to a purchase event. And this is going to write some SQL that's like not outrageously complicated, but it would have taken a little bit of time to write ourselves. So we'll run this. Oops. I think just change that. And then really quickly, in like half a second, we got all of these event sequences. And maybe now we'll say like add a or count of the most popular sequences, sort by that. Is you can iteratively explore your data and tweak your SQL queries just by asking for what you want. And to be honest, most of the time I don't run these kinds of like really simple questions through magic. I'll just like, I would have done this myself and I'll like get rid of this. But it can be really, really, really helpful for complicated things or when you don't know what your, like how to solve your problem. Like here, let's get ourselves into a broken situation. And you can click fix with magic. And then it'll automatically do what it thinks it needs to do to fix this, which is correctly putting this into a CTE or into a subquery so we can group by it externally. So that's a situation where like this would have been a hassle to deal with. I would have had to like prototype and tweak and debug, but I just asked it to magically fix my broken query for me. And it said, oh, I need to pop this list tag into a subquery so that I can properly group by it externally and get that count. And now we can see that there's like 5 or 6 or 7 really common pathways of sequences, and then really, really sharp drop off. So we might want to say, let's explore these sequences. So now the last thing that I'll show is how quick it is to take this and turn it into something useful that I can actually share with other people. So maybe I'll add a little bit of description here, be like, we're looking at overall order volume and common event sequences. I'll name this, call this order volume. We'll call this event types, and then we're going to leave this as a display cell, not as a chart. So we'll clear this out, leave this as a table, and then maybe we'll add some text here and say like most common event sequences that lead to purchase. We'll say like we recommend looking into these to see if there's any optimizations or ways to simplify them. And then we go over to the app tab over here out of our notebook. Hex will automatically turn the contents of our notebook into this like nicely laid out app. And it's really easy to change this and tweak it to make it look just right. A lot of really helpful snap grids. We'll start aligning this and we'll see that it'll helpfully tell us right when it's the same size. We can add this by just dragging it in. And this looks good. It's simple, but it looks pretty good. And then it'll take us about another second or two to click the publish button. I'm going to tweak this to share it with everyone while I'm doing this. So we can change this to let like anyone in the world look at it. Obviously, if this were a real company project, you'd probably want to share it with just your workspace or even with like specific groups of users or people from your organization so they can access it. But this is a demo, so I'm going to show it to everyone. You can set some caching settings, like I said, to make sure this app loads really, really quickly. And then you can publish it. And I'm actually going to copy and paste this into the Zoom chat. And now you all can open this and view this app. And if I open this in another tab, everyone now has access to the data that we just looked at. And they don't just have static access to this. They can rerun this themselves. So they could run this next week and the results would be updated. They can leave a comment and say, like, why are there so many cancellations? And then I would be able to see that and respond. So it's this like really tight feedback loop where like we just did an analysis. It happened really fast because of all those helpful caching and SQL assistance tools. And we published it, and now we're immediately getting feedback and getting eyes on it. And it's being used in, well, production. And the other really neat thing is that an end user of this app, say they're like, I'm only interested in a specific date subset here. They don't have to Slack me and say, hey, Izzy, this is really great, but I'm actually only interested in like the last 3 months worth of data. They can pop into this and filter this down to say day is, or after. Oops. Day is after, and then maybe they just wanted to look at stuff that's like after May. Just add that in. Then this app will start rerunning, and they'll be able to like interactively explore this app and answer their own questions without having to go back to me and like have me redo something or copy and paste and give them a slice of the app in a different manner. So that's really the like full end-to-end workflow of Hex. I'm not sure why this is still loading our demo data set. Could use a little bit of love probably. But I hope that this is a pretty good demo of like just how fast that was. I think we took like 15 or so minutes to walk through an exploration. I took a long time to show you various things along the way, and then we published something live that all of you can actually use. So that's the real demo portion of this. I would love to answer all your questions now. It looks like we have a couple of questions. I'm not sure how to just let anybody talk, but you're all welcome to just raise your hands and ask your questions. Somebody asks, will Hex have VS Code extension? We don't have a VS Code extension. Honestly, part of the reason why is like a lot of this stuff that I showed you is possible because we've done so much work on our platform and there's so much complexity involved in some of these like tools that I just showed off. I don't know that we could appropriately build it into a VS Code extension, but I'm interested in hearing more about why you're interested in that, John. Someone said, can you import any standard Python library? Yeah, so check this out. We have a default or like standard library, I guess you could say, of pre-installed packages. Basically, the way this has worked is whenever any customer has ever asked us about a Python package, we've added it into our pre-installed package list. So it's quite a comprehensive library of things that you can just like pip import, or not even pip install, that you can just import right away. So like I have no idea what Fugu is, but I see it there and we can just import Fugu. If there's something that you don't, or that we don't have, you can just go pip install like Folium, which we do have, but you can run any pip install commands to get any packages here. Moreover, if you have some super custom package for your company or something that's not publicly available on pip, you can add workspace packages from a private GitHub repository. So you can really get anything that you want. Teresa says, can't see the chat. I wonder if there's a way for me to enable chat for everyone. I don't know. I'm sorry, Teresa. We'll figure that out next time. But you're welcome to ask your questions here in the Q&A section. James says, are there map visualizations? Yes, James, there are. Let me pull in some geospatial data. What have we got here? Our city bike data is great for this. I'll limit this to like 5,000 rows. There's a built-in map cell. There's obviously like really great Python packages for mapping, like Folium and GeoPandas and whatnot. But it can take a lot of work to like set them up or to use PyDeck. So we built a map cell where you can just pop in a data frame from a SQL query or from anywhere really. You can pop in your latitude and longitude information, and then you're off to the races, and you can configure your tooltips to show like whatever information you want. You can size by the trip duration and color by the user type, and then like you can get, we'll tweak this up to make this a little bit bigger by default. So you can really, really quickly build maps in Hex that would take quite a while, I think, to build in a more code-based tool. Happy to answer any further questions you have about maps. We have the ability to do heat maps out of the box, as well as plot like more complex geometries and areas. There's some pretty cool examples. If you go on our website and go to use cases, there's some really, really cool geospatial examples. I think maybe, where will we find these? There's a lot of examples here. Yeah, here we have a couple of geospatial demo projects here that you can take a look at. So I encourage you to check those out. You can duplicate them, play with them yourself. Charlie says, is there an easy way to include drill through reports in an app like this? For example, the user clicks one item and is taken to a secondary dashboard. There are a couple of different ways to configure this, Charlie. One way is that, honestly, I showed you a little bit of this where people can filter and click around. We're working on some like really, really robust drilling capabilities right now where you can like just start exploring the data set basically from here, but it's kind of top secret, so I can't show it just yet. But there's something called input parameters, which I didn't show you, but basically you can add interactive dropdowns to any Hex app. You have all of these option types for user inputs. So we can take a dropdown here and maybe we'll feed it from a column here. Like we'll look at all the statuses that our orders are possible to have. Shipped, complete, returned, canceling. And then we can reference these in SQL queries. So we'll say like where status equals one. And this is another nifty speed thing. You don't have to go through and rename stuff. So we'll change this to like status input. It automatically finds every single place in your Python, your SQL code throughout your entire project and updates these references. So we call this whatever we want, and it'll keep everything in sync with references, which is huge. Honestly, I like, that's all of these fancy features aside, that might be the one thing that like I could never live without in a non-Hex notebook. But basically, you can add these to your app, and then you can use these to customize the filters that are applied to various cells. And you can control these with URL input parameters. So if I like change this to returned, I could copy a link to this app that would have the like specific returned value there. And then you could put that into a drill. So you could have like a text block here that said like link to status dashboard cancellations. And then we could make this a link. Oh, that's gross. We can make this a link to that dashboard, like dashboard URL. And then there would be a little input parameter that would be like status input equals canceled. And that would drill accurately. Does that answer your question? Teresa, yes, I will email the link to the app to everyone after this session. I'm sorry that you can't see the chat. Avid says, how long does the session state persist for? So I assume you mean like this thing that we're working in right here. How long does this remain alive? Like if I define X here, how long will X equal 1 for? It's a good question. By default, I believe our kernels last 24 hours. you can restart and kill the kernel by clicking these buttons. But if you just left this here, it would stay alive for 24 hours, I believe. And you can keep it awake by working in it, obviously. User app sessions, so like the published version of this, also, of course, spins up a backend kernel. And those, I believe, are shorter lived because like basically every time you refresh this, it loads the cached state from when it was published. Then the user can refresh it if they want to. So I think that these like end user interactive sessions are shorter lived, but backend sessions are 24 hours, I believe. Ray, can multiple users use the same app in parallel using different filters? Yes. So every user that loads this up, they see their own version, they get their own session of this. So if I'm adding filters here, this is not affecting anybody else that's looking at this app. This is my private little playground for this app. If I want to be in a multiplayer session, I can copy a live session link to this app. And I'm not sure if anyone can see the chat because nobody's messaging in it, but if you can, this link, now if you look at that, you'll see me changing these filters and we'll all be able to work in the same environment together. So this can be really helpful if you're like doing a business review in a meeting or something like that. You all want to be on the same page. You can send the link to everyone. They can all open it and you can walk them through it live and they'll see the things that you're drilling into, that you're filtering, that you're changing. And that works both on the front end of a published app as well as in the backend logic view. So if there were somebody else in here, I would see where they are in this project. Their little icon would be up here. And if they were working in a cell, it would lock it out for me. So I wouldn't be able to step on their toes. Okay, we got 2 minutes left. So let's blaze through this. Can results be source code controlled? Yes, we have a Git integration. You'll see that when I go to publish, we'll be able to see the updates to the app as well as to the logic diff. Which is basically what we call changes to that notebook layout. So you'll be able to see a visual representation. I'm not sure why this is so slow. I think my internet might be crappy. So you can see all the changes that have been made here really easily. You can also plug this directly into Git to require pull requests to be approved. So basically, if I'd set this up with Git, instead of a publish button here, there would be a purple open pull request button. And then I would have to open a PR. And then every time I went to publish, it would say, hey, this PR hasn't been approved yet, hasn't been approved yet. Once the PR has been approved, then it would let me publish. So you can source control all of that stuff, yes. Built-in geographic functions. Yeah, there are built-in geographic functions. Well, sort of. So something that I didn't show you is that you can chain these SQL queries together, right? But you can also just run SQL queries against any data frame in your project or like any result of a previous SQL query. So like I can select star from data frame 2. This is going to run locally with an in-memory DuckDB based data set. I don't know if you've heard of DuckDB, but DuckDB has a ton of built-in like PostGIS style spatial functions, but we don't have a no-code geographic data set yet. What databases can be connected? Pretty much everything. We have a ton of options. Let's see. Let me click the button. Show you. We have all these options. And these are all the ones that are natively supported. And then if there's something that you need that isn't here, you can of course always use a SQL or a Python connector to get there. I'll answer one or two more and then we're over. So I should probably drop after that. When sharing an app, how many users can access it for free? Everyone. Viewers are free. So you pay for the editors that create apps. You don't pay for the viewers. So you don't have to worry about that. Python dependency hell. This really only applies, John, for a couple of default packages like pandas or things that have like really deep dependencies that Hex relies on. So like we rely on some pandas stuff to show this built-in Hex display. And so we have locked that dependency. If you reach out to support, they can help you navigate that dependency hell. I actually think that Hex helps fix dependency hell a lot of the time because we've already installed like all the right versions of things. But yeah, for a couple of core packages that we depend on, it can be a little dicey. Let us know why you need 201 and we can figure that out. James says, what version of SQL? I assume you're talking about that DuckDB data frame SQL thing. This just uses DuckDB. we try to keep current. We're usually maybe like 1 or 2 releases behind on our DuckDB version, but we try and keep current with that. And this syntax is very, very similar to Postgres if you've never used DuckDB before. Very similar, but with a couple of discrepancies. Cool. I think that answers all of your questions. If you have any more, you're welcome to shoot me an email. I think you all have my email because I invited you to this thing, or just reach out to Hex via support or hit us up any way you know how. I'll publish a recording to this and email it to you along with a link to the app. And yeah, it was lovely to meet all of you. And I hope this is helpful in showing you how fast Hex can be for doing the kind of data work that you do every day. Thanks, y'all.